Okay, very good afternoon, one and all. We're there for this particular e-conference, which is on effective research proposal and manuscript writing for as a faculty development program and student training program organized by Sir Dr. M.S. Goswami College of Pharmaceutical and Education. I am pleased to introduce you this afternoon session speaker, Dr. Sanjula Baboota. Madam, the brief introduction I will do. As per the academic qualifications are concerned, Madam is B.Pharm, M.Pharm with distinction from the School of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, Jamia Hamdard. As per the awards and expertise and achievements and recognition is concerned, Madam is received Research Award by AICT Vishwesvaraya Best Teacher Award in 2021. Then Madam also receives Postdoctoral Research Award in 2004 by University Grant Commission. Young Pharmacy Teachers of the Year Award 2009 by Association of Pharmacy Teachers India. Then Dr. P.D. Sethi Research Paper Annual Award Certificate of Appreciation for the Research Paper. Then Madam is recognized for publication in high impact factor journals and citation from Jamia Hamdard. Then Ma'am also featured in the top scientists in 2019 global list across all fields. Madam was selected for AICT Ukeri Technical Leadership Development Program for the year 2019-20 by Chartered Management Institute, United Kingdom. So far, Madam has guided more than 75 students for their postgraduate level and 30 doctoral research works. Madam has written several textbooks and has published more than 300 papers, which includes original research articles, review articles, proceedings, and invited book chapters in edited books. Then Madam works has received more than 14,000 citations with HI index of 61 and I-10 index of 182. So this is a very brief introduction of Madam, which contributed a lot in the research and development. Definitely this insightful resourceful knowledge of Madam will enlighten us, will enrich our knowledge. On behalf of Sir Dr. M.S. Goswami College of Pharmaceutical Organizers and Management and Principal, I welcome you, Madam, and I humbly states and request you kindly proceed with your proficiency. Now it's over to you, Madam. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction, right? And thanks for inviting me to be a speaker. Thanks to your college, MS Gosavi College of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, Nasik, Maharashtra, for inviting me to be a speaker in this FDP of yours, which is talking about a very relevant topic, which is effective research proposal and manuscript writing, right? So I will start on with my presentation, and I'm going to speak today on scientific writing, the art and the science behind it, right? So we should understand that scientific writing is not only the science, but once we have conducted, all our research, we have, collected the data. So how are we writing that particular data and transforming it into a manuscript? So that involves the art also. So that is why my presentation says the art and the science behind it. So, what are you going to get from this presentation today? What is the take home, the message or the knowledge that you are going to get from this? I think, in this FDP, you have listened to a lot of speakers, speaking on the same thing. So, my aim of this presentation is that let me eliminate certain myths and apprehensions which are there about the paper writing, right? Many a times we are very good researchers, we do good experiments, but when it comes to transforming those experiments into a manuscript, there we have some apprehensions about it, right? So we are going to touch on those topics today, and maybe from my experience. From my experience, I'm going to share certain useful tips so that there are high chances of acceptance for publication. So before I begin, I would just like to state, there is a well-known scientist, George Sykes, and he said that, he gave a very interesting reason that why we should publish. Okay, so he said that if your research does not generate papers, it might just as well not have been done, right? Okay, so you are doing something in your lab, but you are not generating paper out of it, so it might just not have been done. Interesting and unpublished is equivalent to non-existent. So you should see. He says interesting, but it is not published is equivalent to non-existent. Realize that your objective in research is to formulate and test hypotheses, to draw the conclusions from those tests, and to teach those conclusions to the other. Right? Your objective is not to collect data. So he has said a very important thing. Right? So today, for example, you are working on something, you are testing a hypothesis. I basically belong to a drug delivery stream, because I am from pharmaceutics, so we have been working a lot on developing novel drug delivery systems. So, like for example, when I started, with my Pharm, I always I chose one particular topic, right? So that particular topic was oral bioavailability, and we have worked a lot on oral bioavailability, but over a period of time our delivery systems kept on changing, right? So I started with the pro drug approach, then went on to complexation, and then made my forte in the field of lipid based drug delivery system. So in the lipid based drug delivery system, if you look at my publications, so we are basically dealing with nano emulsions, micro emulsions, nanostructured lipid carriers. These are the ones on which we are working a lot. So when we started working on micro emulsions, so in micro emulsions, we knew that, oil is there and surfactant is there, and along with the surfactant, the co-surfactant is there. But then, how to select the surfactant or the co-surfactant, which is called as the S mix, so whether it needs to be a 1:1 or a 2:1 or a 1:2. So we did not know at that particular time. So we made a chart. We made a chart of how we should go about doing the titrations, because we were preparing it by the spontaneous emulsification method, initially. So we made, some charts as to, and we published our paper. And believe me, there, if you look at my publication, so you will see that there is a paper which is talking about nano emulsions for aciclofenac, and there we talked in detail as to how we prepared the nano emulsion, and we generated a lot of citations for it. So the purpose, what he has said, is absolutely right, that whatever experiment you are doing and you are collecting data, but if you are not publishing it in a reputed journal, in a good journal, or you are not publishing it in a right way, so then that knowledge doesn't go to a lot of people. So our purpose, as academicians, should also be to share knowledge, and that knowledge sharing can only be there if we are publishing our work which has been done. So what are the benefits of publication? I don't know why this slide is, going out, but so it tells the world that your research, it tells about the research, right? And it says that the principle or the rule of publish or perish hold true, right? If I am working on lipid based drug delivery system, I'm working on oral bioavailability enhancement, I get lot of, I generate lot of research interest. There are a lot of people who reach out to me, for evaluating the projects, for evaluating the thesis. They are asking me to come. So this is how they know that, okay, yeah, she's one who's working on this particular delivery system. Okay, it's a platform to communicate with your peers and exchange your ideas. and it provides you recognition, right? It provides you recognition amongst your research community as an expert. uh, if I tell you, uh, i I got a lot of grants also, right? So when I said that I started working on cyclodextrin complexes, so I got two UGC grants. One was a UGC major research project. The other one was a UGC research award, which I got. Similarly, when I started working on lipid-based drug delivery systems, so I got it from AICT, I got it from ICMR, right? CCRAS, which is Central Council for Research and Ayurvedic System. We submitted an EMR project to them where they had certain products, which were in the form of churan and normal cream, and they were very effective for psoriasis. Okay, so they asked us to convert those product of their those products into novel drug delivery systems. So for nimbatiktam, which was a powder, a neem based powder for psoriasis, we made a sustained release dosage form. And for their oils and creams, we made micro emulsions and nano emulsions, right? It helps in your career advancement. So if the audience are the teachers, who have joined this EFDP, so they will be knowing that whenever you are going for an interview, whenever you are submitting your CAS application, so it's seen that how many research, how many review papers you have, you are graded accordingly, right? And then you are asked, even in the interview, the major chunk or the major focus is on the kind of research which you have done and the papers which you have generated from you. Like, it makes you an expert in your field. So before I just tell you what are the various parts of a manuscript and how do we go about, and I will share my some personal experiences with you, right? So let us just see that what are the various kinds of scientific writing which everybody of you know, that these are your research articles or review articles, editorials are there, letter to the editor is there, and book chapters is there, right? So except for the letter to the editor, I have done every one of them. I've written a lot of research articles, review articles. We guest edited some thematic issues for Bentham. So when we guest edited those issues, so we wrote editorials also, and book chapters. A lot of them have been written. Books have been written, national as well as international. So research article, I think I will not go too much into it. Everybody knows, when we are doing some experiment, we are finding out certain findings, we publish it and we call it them as research articles, right? So our objective of the research work should be that we should be very specific, it should be smart, right? So smart is we should be specific, we should be measurable, right? Achievable, realistic, and we should be time bound. Review articles. Uh, yes, I find them to be very interesting, and I promote each and every student of mine who comes, for his post graduation and for the PhD program to come up with a review article, because review articles, if nicely written, it's nicely written. First of all, it's a secondary source of information, right? And if everybody of us knows that when we are doing a research, so we the essence of a good research is that we have to go through, we should go through a lot of literature, and we should know that whatever we are thinking, right, are we thinking it in the right direction, and whatever we are thinking is in the right direction is supported by, if we have read a lot of literature, for that particular problem that we are going to execute in the lab, right? So literature review is a dry lab. It's a dry lab, right? You read a lot of work which has already been published, right? And then you try to see what is the lacuna, which is there in the existing research, and then when you are doing your work, maybe you will try to solve that particular lacuna which has been there. So a good review is like it summarizes the work which has already been done. And if that summarization is in a very crisp, concise manner, right, believe me, review articles, they provide you with lot of citations, because it's a very easy way to know that the 2030 work which has already been done related to the work which you are supposed to take in the times to come. Editorials, right? So what are editorials? These are the short invited opinion pieces that discuss an issue of immediate importance to the research community. Okay, so they are less than 10,000 words. You don't have an abstract for them. There are no tables, figures, photograph, and up to 5 references. Okay, so this is the editorial. So we were guest editing a issue for current pharmaceutical design, which is a Bentham journal, and our thematic issue was nanotherapeutics for neurological disorders. Okay, so this was the editorial which had been written by me, where we told that what are the various neurological disorders, and what are the shortcomings or drawbacks which are associated with these, and then why do we need a nanotherapeutic approach to address this problem. And then in that particular journal, we had articles for Alzheimer's, Parkinson, then different drug delivery systems had been used. So we just discussed about it in a little in our editorial. Letter to the editor, right? It's a brief report that is within the journal scope, and it is of particular interest to the community, right? It can be a reanalysis of a previously published article. And one example I would like to show is, this is one of the letter which has been written to the editor. And there, he is talking about one of the paper which has been published into that particular journal. And first of all, he is appreciating that particular article, and then he is also telling that what are could have been included in this particular article to make it more promising and more interesting. The next kind of a scientific writing is a book chapter, right? And I think many of you must have written a book chapter, maybe a book, or you must have contributed a book chapter. So it can be a monograph, it can be a handbook, or it can be a textbook. So now let us come. Once we have known that what are the various kinds of scientific writing, now let us come that we start writing a paper, right? We start writing a paper and we are calling it as a manuscript. Okay. So the format, right? The format for any paper, the format for any paper is, we can learn this. We can say IMRAD, which means you have an introduction, then you have a material method section, you have a result section, and you have a discussion section into that particular paper, right? Now how do you write, right? Everybody knows that, yes, these are the sections which are your introduction, method, result, discussion. But how do we write, what do we write into that particular part is very important, right? So introduction, right, should be, you should try to answer all the whys there. Okay, we will come in detail about it. Methods is, the methodology, the materials, and the methodology that we have studied, how we did that experiment. It should be very clear and concise. Results is that what were the findings from it. And then many a times I saw that, again, my personal experience, which I'm sharing with you. Many a times I saw that, when we started with the manuscript writing, we used to write the result, right? Like for example, I did a I prepared a nano emulsion. So what were, why I selected a particular oil or a surfactant. I got a particular particle size, a polydispersity index, a zeta potential. Just used to write it, right, and conclude. जिस स्पीड से पेपर जाता था जर्नल में उसी स्पीड से वापस आता था, right? Rejection. So then, we brainstormed and we tried to see that what is, the lacuna which is there in our paper. And then the lacuna was that we were simply putting the results, we were not discussing the results in the light of the literature, right? So it is very important that if I am getting a particle size of 90 nanometers, right, if I am getting a polydispersity index of 0.25, right, so is it acceptable? If it is acceptable, why it is acceptable? If it is not acceptable, then why it is not acceptable? So if a paper has a solid discussion, the chances of acceptance of that paper is very high. So, just to make it more interesting, I say writing a paper is is like making a dish which is based on a recipe book. Okay, so what all ingredients I need? Like when I'm preparing a dish, I need certain ingredients. So similarly, when I'm writing a paper, I also need certain ingredients. So what are those ingredients that I need? I need to have a hypothesis that why I did a work. Right? What was the rationale behind doing the work? The methodology which I adopted, right? The results and the discussion, the conclusion and the references. Okay. So once I have collected all those things, I have put it into the paper, right? It's like these are this side tells you about the the various parts of of making a dish. What are the various steps which are involved in making a dish, right? And we have correlated it with the with our manuscript. So once I have written down my paper or I have made my dish, I taste it, right? So similarly, what I need to do, I need to read my manuscript. I need to read my manuscript aloud and I need to read it repeatedly because once I read it, then only I will come to know that, you know, do I find it to be satisfactorily enough or not? So I can improvise. So I revise it, okay? Then it says that get the dish tasted by the family. So it's like make your colleagues read your paper. One of the best thing, which I always had was that when I was doing my, or whenever I'm doing my work, I work in a group, right? I'm not doing it alone. So the co-supervisor who's a part of our, a M.Pharm thesis or a PhD thesis, we have made it a point that once the manuscript has been written, it needs to go to them also, right? They need to find time and they need to read because then we get the other person's perspective. When read, I don't, maybe over a period of time I'm not going to realize certain drawbacks or lacuna into my manuscript, but when the other person reads, he has a different perspective and they can suggest. Okay, so if they are suggesting something, we revise it again, we submit it to the journal, right? It's like serving your dish to the guest. You survive the comments. If your paper is good enough, it is taken up in the publication process, right? It undergoes it survives the peer review. You get some comments for it, right? You answer those comments satisfactorily, it gets accepted and then it gets published. So it's like you are enjoying when the feeling of getting your paper accepted is, it's very enjoyable. It's very enjoyable. So the process is the author writes, he submits the article to the journal editor sends the manuscript to the expert reviewers, right? So many a times, it can be a blind review. We know We know that we don't know to whom our paper has gone. Sometimes, uh, into that review, if you have seen, we just have the title of the manuscript, we have the abstract, right? But we don't have the names, so it is a double blind review. We don't know, to whom the paper has been sent. Sometimes, you see that even the name of the authors is there, and that is not something which is correct, because maybe, if that paper is coming to me, and if I see then some names, which I know, maybe a biasness can be there, right? So expert reviews, it goes to the expert reviews for reviewing. The expert reviewers return the manuscript to the editor for with suggestion for changes, right? Whether it is to be published or not to be published, rejected, accepted, minor revisions, major revisions. Then the editor reviewers, they send the manuscript to the authors, for revision. If you answer, your revision satisfactorily, the paper gets accepted and then it is published. Uh, yes, this is something, which I try to write on this slide, based on my experience, that what are the editors and the reviewers looking for in my paper, right? Okay, so the first is brevity and clarity. So brevity is how concise I am, how concise and how clear I am, as far as my, inner review, as far as my topic is concerned in my research, as far as my results discussion methodology is concerned. Okay, validity of those work which has been which is being reported by me, right? Many a times what happens is we send it to the journal, we don't read the aim and the scope of the journal. Very important to realize that, if I'm talking about a drug delivery, so European Journal of Pharmaceutical Sciences, International Journal of Pharmaceutical Sciences, drug delivery, okay, chemistry and uh, of physics and lipids, all chemistry and physics of lipids, all these things, we need to see the journal. We need to see the journal, and we need to read the aim and the scope of the journal, whether we are fitting into it or not, right? So many a times we just send it, right? So we should know whether our article, it fits the standards and scope of the journal, how innovative and original my article is, right? Whether it is adding anything to the existing knowledge or not, right? Like I said, when we started working on nano emulsions and micro emulsions, and when we were doing that spontaneous emulsification method, right? So we have designed that, how to prepare the pseudo ternary phase diagrams, and how to do the titrations, and then how to select our S mix, whether it should be 1:1, 2:1. So all these things, when we published, the paper acceptance speed was very high, and we generated a lot of citations for that. Okay, so develop new concept. We wrote some review articles on resveratrol, on rutin. At that time, the concept of phytopharmaceuticals was just coming in, and we compiled literature on resveratrol, rutin. uh, I just remember curcumin, yeah, curcumin. And those article of ours, expert opinion in on investigational drug. The journal was expert opinion in investigational drug, and I think nowadays the impact factor is something around 7 for that. It got accepted at one go, right? So methods, the other things which are there is methods are described clearly and in enough details for the others to replicate. One of the most important thing, you must also have experienced that whenever we are talking about an analytical paper, as a drug delivery scientist, I am not interested in developing an analytical method, for any of the drugs which I am using. So I would like to just, replicate any of the reported methods. I would like to, not develop, but maybe validate the reported method which has already been published, But the problem many a time comes is that whenever we try, replicating that analytical method, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So that gives a lot of frustration to you, because it's a reported piece of work, and if you're trying to replicate, you are not able to generate the results which have been reported, right? So then that kind of a manuscript is not a good manuscript, right? Statistical analysis, whether the editors and the reviewers will also see that is your work significant, and to what level of significance it is appropriate. The results answers the research questions, right? So the research question, you have put it into the introduction section, right? And then you start working, you have a methodology section, you have a result section, and then the reviewers, they see that the hypothesis that you have proposed into the introduction section, is it matching with the result, and the conclusions have been drawn appropriately or not. So these are some of the things, which a reviewer, or when I am also reviewing a manuscript, these are the things which I look at. So you can also take cognizance of these particular facts. What are the reasons for your paper rejection? I don't know why these slides are being cut out here, but when I used to see, they were perfect. So the reasons for your paper rejection can be non-originality of your work. You are not sending your work to the appropriate journal. Okay, right? One of my research student, that was the first time we started working on neurological disorders, and in the neurological disorders we started working on depression, right? So one of my student, he took duloxetine, right? He took duloxetine, which is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, and he prepared a NLC and gave it by the nose to the brain route, right? The intranasal route. So one of the paper, which was dealing with the complete formulation part, was put it into journal, which was drug delivery, right? Then there was a second part of our research work, because our work was very extensive at that time. So there was a second part of our research work which was telling about, the in vivo efficacy studies, right? So where we had done the pharmacokinetics and the pharmacodynamic studies. So in the pharmacokinetic studies, we had estimated the concentration of the drug in the blood and the brain, and in the pharmacodynamic studies, we had done all the behavioral studies. Okay, so then he found a journal which was uh, Journal of Psychiatry, International Journal of Psychiatry, right? And he came up to me saying that, madam, we are going to go ahead and submit our work into that particular journal. And since we were falling into the scope and the aim of the journal, we were able to publish that particular work into that journal, right? So it is very important to to select a very appropriate journal for your work. uh, Inappropriate or incomplete statistics is another one reason, for which our paper gets rejected. uh, the instrumentation that we are using, we are not describing it, we are not reporting it in details, right? So another reason, incomplete, inaccurate, or outdated review of literature. Very important, very important. So if I'm supporting my result with some discussion, right, and into that particular discussion I'm citing the literature, so I need to make sure that the literature I'm citing is a recent. Even in my introduction section, whatever literature I'm citing, should not be an outdated review. Insufficient data has been presented, defective tables or figures. Whenever we work with, when we collaborate with anybody who's outside India, so they say, please improve on, as far as your resolution of tables and figures are concerned. right? So we have realized that it is very important. We just, what we do is that we are making a graph, or we are taking a, a chromatogram, or we are taking a particle size image. We are not putting it into the desired resolution. It is not clear, it's very hazy, right? So uh, it's very important for everyone to understand that we need to pay a lot of attention to our tables and figures, because they can be one of the major reasons for the rejection of our manuscript, right? It's merely a confirmatory experiment, which is being reported. It describes poorly designed or constructed studies. There are a lot of grammar, syntax, or spelling errors into that. So nowadays we can use, Grammarly. We can take support of all these, checks which are there, and try to remove the errors which come due to them. Okay, the conclusions are not matching with the results, which have been reported. So now let us come quickly to the basic structure of manuscript. It consists of a title, then it is followed by an abstract, introduction, methodologies, the results, discussion, conclusion, and the references, right? Uh, okay, title of the paper, very important, very important. Right? Make your title as attractive as possible. Okay, in the fewest possible words, try to just what you are going to present into that particular manuscript, right? It should be like, for example, bad title, he says, action of streptomycin on mycobacterium tuberculosis. But a good title is inhibition of growth of mycobacterium tuberculosis by streptomycin, right? So make it as informative as possible. It should not be just writing. Okay. uh, okay, I don't know why this is not coming, but I had written some titles, you know uh, okay. So see, it's not visible right now, because it is there in my another presentation, right? So, like, for example, we had written a title which said CCRD based development of bromocryptin and glutathione nanoemulsion tailored ultrasonically for the combined anti-Parkinson effect, right? So we try to make our title as descriptive as possible, so that the viewer knows, the reader knows that what he is going to find into this particular manuscript. The title is then followed by the abstract of the paper, right? So in the abstract of the paper, we should know that what is there in that, what we should write into that abstract. So basically, abstract is summary of my paper, right? So into that summary, I should have, you know the purpose of the paper, which I'm going to take from the introduction section, the experimental design and the methodology, taken from the methodology section, the key findings, which is taken from the result and the discussion section, and a brief summary of the interpretation, which has been taken from the conclusion section. Okay, like, for example, I will show you here. Not visible, not very, like, for example, see the title which I was talking about, right? So this is, we were making a selegiline nanoemulsion for the Parkinson disease, right? And there we had used design expert, right? So we had applied QBD, and we had used design expert. So design expert used was CCRD or Boxbenken. Into this particular CCRD was used, right? So our title said design expert supported optimization and predictive analysis of selegiline nanoemulsion. It was given by the nose to the brain route. So we said via the olfactory region, with enhanced behavioral performance in Parkinson disease, right? So we had listed everything. We had listed everything that you are going to get information about how to prepare a salicylic nanoemulsion, right, which has been used for the treatment of Parkinson disease, and you are also going to get some information about the behavioral performance. Okay, so this was my abstract where we had first in the first two lines, if you see, we have told about what is the Parkinson disease, what is the major problem which is associated with the oral administration of this selegiline, right? Then what we had done to prepare this formulation, we had used a QBD approach. Then we had listed down the results, and then the conclusions were there, right? So two kinds of abstracts are there. One is, which is in a paragraph form, which is not a structured abstract. The other is a structured abstract. This was like, another work which was done, in which we had prepared nano carriers. This was nano emulsion, curcumin nano emulsion, for improving the bioavailability, stability, and cytotoxicity against the glioma cells. Okay, so here the objective was there, then the methods and the material was there, the result was there, and the conclusion was there. So this is what I wanted to tell you, that an abstract is a summary, and it should have all the four parts included into it, which is your introduction section, the material method section, the results discussion section, and the conclusion section. Then very important, okay, again, this is these examples are for your research work. So these both articles were research articles, and this is your review article, right? So in review article also, same type are there, structured abstracts and non-structured abstracts, right? So structured abstracts, you see introduction, areas covered, and the expert opinion. And the non-structured is, we have written everything into a paragraph out here. So if you see, again, this was the title which we had used: strengths in nanotechnology based drug delivery system for dermal targeting of drugs, an enticing approach to offset psoriasis. So everything about psoriasis, right, and the various nanotechnology based systems which have been used till now for psoriasis were listed into this particular article. Similarly, this is docetaxel, right? Mm, Again, when my student came up to me saying, Madam, I'm going to, because he was working on docetaxel, and he said that, Madam, I'm going to write an article on docetaxel. I was like, why docetaxel? And he said, okay, when I went through the literature, I did not find a comprehensive review article talking about, docetaxel, where, I could just have one article and I could see various information. And then he wrote this, the molecular mechanism of docetaxel, the therapeutic trajectory, and the various nanotechnology, approaches which have been worked till now on docetaxel. And we then restricted ourselves to breast cancer, lung cancer, and prostate cancer. Keywords, very important, because if we have put in the right keywords, we can make sure that our article, it is going to go. If somebody is putting docetaxel, I'm sure that my article is also going to flash. If somebody is putting, nanotechnology for breast cancer, maybe my article is going to flash. So here, we had talked about docetaxel, pharmacokinetics, minor cancer, neurosciences here. So it is very important to have relevant keywords, so that people are able to reach to your article, and if they find it to be interesting, they use your article, they cite your article. Very important part is introduction, right? So here you need to answer all the whys, like for example, when my student starts with the research, so I said answer all the whys. Let's say, you are working on selegiline nanoemulsion for the treatment of Parkinson disease, and you are trying to give it by the nose to the brain root. So first of all, why Parkinson disease? Why do you think you have worked on? So give some statistics that Parkinson is a neurodegenerative diseases are on the high, and because of lifestyle changes, because of aging, what is the statistics on that, that makes the audience aware that yes, this is a problem, which is widespread in nature, and it needs some correction, or it needs some work to be done on it. Okay. Then, what are the treatment options which are available for Parkinson, and what is the lacuna which is associated with it. Then why particular selegiline, right, has been selected. So if we are giving selegiline by the oral route, what kind of a problems are we facing, when we are giving by the oral route. So why I need to go for a intranasal drug delivery approach, right? So if I'm answering all the whys, then I think I'm justifying my research for that. So introduction should be, answer to all the whys. So introduction is tacrolimus is there, various formulation strategies are there, the why the study is being done, and what is the aim of the study. So in the aim of the study also, it is very important to tell you that what the reader is going to get from this study. Very important, right? Material and the methodology, because if somebody finds my paper to be interesting, they are going to use the methodology section, whatever I have reported into that section, and they will try to replicate it. They're trying to replicate it. If those experiments are not written in the way, which anybody else can replicate it, then the purpose is not solved. The purpose is not solved, right? So it is very important to report how you did the experiment, right? To how you did the experiment, you found certain problems into doing that experiment, and how you overcame that. It is very important for you to write it in the way that it is reproducible. Then comes the result section, right? The result section should be reported without conclusions. Again, differs, from journal to journal. Sometimes a journal says results and discussion. Sometimes it says only results followed by discussion and conclusion. Sometimes it says results and discussion, then conclusion, right? So depending upon, in which journal are we submitting, how the journal wants us to report, we have to see that. So the result section should be reported. Take the results referring to the procedure, summarize it into tables, because table, it is very easy to understand your experiment, the conclusions which have been drawn from the experiment, seeing the tables and the figures, right? So if you now see, every journal is also asking us for a graphical abstract, right? Because maybe many a times, maybe, a person is not reading the abstract completely, but a graphical abstract also tells you about, what they are going to find into that particular paper, right? So graphics are very important, and tables, figures, and graphs help us to make our reader understand, better about the work which has been done by us. Okay. Like I said initially also, your figures should be of high resolution. And sometimes, many a times what happens is we are getting negative results. Like, I will tell you, I was working with tween, right? When I was making a nano emulsion, so the surfactant that we were using were all non-ionic in nature, right? The S, my surfactants were non-ionic in nature. So my student, when they started doing the experiment, they optimized it, and then they went to determine the zeta potential. So when they determined the zeta potential was coming out to be something like minus 5 millivolt, 7 minus 7 millivolt, minus 3 millivolt. And we were like, why, this zeta potential? Because it is reported that a zeta potential plus minus 30 millivolt is considered to be very acceptable, because of that, the particles are not going to come closer to each other, and they're going to remain repelled from each other. Right? Steric hindrance is going to be more. So now, if I'm getting a minus 3 millivolt, I'm getting a minus 5 millivolt zeta potential, and I'm reporting this, maybe, my paper is not going to get accepted, literature says. But then When we are doing the experiment, we are getting it. So what to do then? What to do then? So let's sit and let's analyze our results. So when we started analyzing, we said that the surfactants that we are use are non-ionic in nature. They do not carry a charge, right? And whatever I am charge I am getting maybe because of the oil droplets, because of the free fatty acids which is there from that oil droplet. And we reported that and we gave a reason that why we are getting it. Okay, so it is very important that whatever results you are getting, we should not get disturbed by something which has already been reported, and we are not getting the desired things. We are not getting, maybe there is a reason why we are not getting that desired thing, and we need to report on that. Discussion section, as I said, it should be interpretation of results, right? Information on, and like it's very important, I'm doing an experiment where I'm selecting an oil, right? So why I am selecting a particular oil, why? First of all, it's very important for me to tell that why I have selected, why I chose 5 oils, and why I did a solubility studies in those 5 oils. And in that 5 oils, if let's say 2 oils I'm getting the same solubility, why I have chosen one, why I have rejected other, right? So discussion part of your paper should be very strong, and every aspect, why you are taking a particular oil, why a particular ratio of the S mix, why a spontaneous emulsification method, why you are getting a particle size this much, a zeta potential this much, a percentage release. So everything should be supported by a discussion. After the discussion section, we have the conclusion section, right? Give your conclusions, that what is the new understanding of the problem you investigated and outlined in the introduction, and there should be no repetition of your result or data. Acknowledgement. Again, I just wanted to tell you that it is very important to acknowledge. Many a times what happens is that there are a lot of people, there are a lot of things which are involved into our paper. We cannot give authorship to every one of them, right? We cannot give authors. So like for example, we go to aims for getting the 10 done, right? So we are going to acknowledge the support of aims. We get excipients from Gatofos, right? So we are going to acknowledge them, for their generosity. Okay, so it is very important to acknowledge the people, and some of them are the authors were thankful to DST, Government of India, for financial assistance. The authors also acknowledge CIPLA and Ranbaxy for providing gift samples, right? Another thing which is very important, whenever many a times what happens is we are presenting our work into a conference, right, before publication, right? So once we are publishing our work, we should also write this thing, a part of this work was presented in the 37th annual at San Diego, USA. Okay, so be honest in whatever you are doing. Important, cite your literature, right? So whenever we are everybody knows that the preferred method of citing a reference in the text is author date system, Baboota, 1997, right? Two authors are there, so both of them 1972, and if more than two, Baboota et al, 1972. Whatever we are citing in the text should be present in our reference section. Nowadays, what we have started noticing is that whenever we are sending any publication, so they are going to say that, okay, there are too many figures and there are too many tables into your manuscript, put some of them in the appendices. Okay, so the non-essential work or the tables are put into the appendix section. How do you respond to the referees, right? Answer completely, answer politely, and answer with evidence. You can use some of these phrases. We agree with the referee, but the referee is right in accordance with the referee. So what, again, it's not coming. I don't know what is why this presentation, because I had written a letter also, where I had shown that how do we write. How do you select your journal? It should be relevant, it should be targeting your audience, it should, you know You have to see, you have money, you go for an open access journal, you go for a subscription journal, the reputation of that journal, the average time for decision making, how often do they reject, what is the rate of rejection. And please, please, please be aware of predatory journals. Nowadays there are a lot of predatory journals. They woo you, you want to get your work published quickly, but that is spoiling your reputation. Okay, go in for an index journal which is listed in any of the electronic databases, and the most important one is your PubMed. Right, predatory journals, so which prioritize self-interest at the expense of scholarship, and they are characterized by false or misleading information. Check for the journal matrices. So one of the matrices is impact factor, right? So I'm not going into this. The H index, right? Like, so if you see, I think in the introduction section also it was said that, I have a H index of 60. So this means like my 60 articles have been cited for more than 60 times. I have a I10 index of 182. That is, 182 articles have been cited for more than 10 times. Quickly, I will just tell you that what are the various publication misconducts, right? We publish, but then there are misconducts also. When there is something good, there is something bad also associated. So the major one is plagiarism, then data fabrication and falsification is also there, disputed authorship, and undeclared conflict of interest, right? So plagiarism is act of fraud, stealing something from someone else and publishing it. Okay, how do you avoid plan, right? How do you avoid? So while doing your research, save the sources from where you have taken the information and quote them. Many a times, you say that tween 80 is a non-ionic surfactant. Okay, yeah. I say that the Zika potential of plus minus 30 millivolt is considered to be acceptable. So from where I took it, let me just cite it. Okay. So when I am doing a literature review, you know, my tip to my students is that whenever you are doing a literature review, you come across a interesting article, and in that interesting article you say that okay, there is a very good point of discussion written about the particle size. So make a folder, like into that folder put that article and name that folder particle size. you know in some paper you found that there was something very good written about the introduction part of the manuscript, right? So save it as introduction. So tomorrow when you start writing your paper, you have 10 folders with you, and in those 10 folders you have some good articles saved, and you know why you saved that particular article. So you will just go to that particular point, take out the discussion from it, read it, try to reapply it to your results, and then write it accordingly. Do not copy, quote, paraphrase, and summarize, right? And the most important thing is when in doubt, cite. So if you are citing, you are making yourself safe. Uh, with this AI coming into picture now, and so many softwares coming, so they are picking up, like for example, you have a Plaid software which is picking up, that whether you have taken the complete sentence or the complete paragraph, same to same or not. So similarly now, we have tools which are recognizing, our figures, which are also recognizing that the data which is there is a fabricated data or a false data. So please abstain yourself from falsification and fabrication of data, because once the paper gets retracted, it is very shameful for a scientist. Let us publish few papers, but those papers should be honest papers, right? So another problem is data fabrication and falsification. My slides, I think something I wrong. Maybe I gave a wrong presentation or what? Then after that, after the fabrication and falsification of data, we have another problem, which is the problem with our authorship, right? So the one who is doing the work, the one who's doing the who has actually done the work, should be your main author. Like guides will be the corresponding author. Like the guides will be the corresponding author, and then according to the quantum of work or the contribution which has been done by anyone, we should give authorship to them. The next one is your redundant and duplicate publication, right? So redundant and duplicate publication is that we are repeating the work, we are duplicating our publication again and again, which is not good. The other major reason for publication misconduct is your conflict of interest. So conflict of interest is that a company wants to launch their product and they are funding me for that research paper, and I'm giving the positive results for that. So this is a conflict of interest which should be avoided. Okay. So if we look at the because the problem of misconduct is so much that even the government of India has given a notification, the University Grants Commission has given a notification, for promotion of academic integrity and prevention of plagiarism in higher educational institutes. And they are also, they have made certain guidelines, to curb plagiarism into our research or review papers, right? And they say they have divided the level of plagiarism as level 0, 1, 2, and 3, right? So level 0 is similarities up to 10%. They are minor similarities, no penalty. So when I get my paper checked by Turnitin or Urkun, I make sure that my plagiarism is less than 10%, right? Level 1 is 10 to 40%, 2 is 40 to 60%, and 3 is more than 60%. So what are the, in case of thesis and dissertation, if it is between 10 to 40%, then such student shall be asked to submit a revised script within a stipulated time period. If it is above 40% to 60%, they shall be debarred from submitting a revised script for a period of 1 year. And if it is above 60%, such student registration shall be cancelled. In case of publications, right, if it is 10 to 40%, shall be asked to withdraw the manuscript. Between 40 to 60% shall be asked to withdraw the manuscript, deny one annual increment, right, shall not be allowed to be a supervisor to any master, MPhil, PhD for a period of 2 years. And if it is above 60%, shall be denied the right to two consecutive annual increments and should not be allowed for a period of 3 years. So even UGC has taken cognizance of that fact. And I will just conclude by saying that please let us not, go for salami science. So salami science is that we are hungry for publication and we break our work, into many different manuscripts, and we try to, make a lot of manuscripts from one research that we have done, because it dilutes our importance of work, right? One comprehensive paper is stronger than several small papers, and our credibility is not based on the value of the paper, is based on the value of our papers and not the counts, right? So it is very important to attribute, seek permissions, acknowledge, as far as good writing is concerned. So thank you all for your patient listening. Thank you.
Okay. Very well explained by madam. I am audible.
Yes, yes, you are.
Yeah. So it was very nice presentation, madam, and you are highlighted various points. So we will take a question answers for this particular session. So I am seeing
Thank you.
that, yeah, yeah, just As there are as such no question, but I have also one or two point to discuss as an insight that you said about the predatory journals, how it has to be identified, madam.
See, if we because it's very important to first of all see that what kind of a publication is being reported into that particular journal, right? And any journal which is first of all which is not indexed, which doesn't have which is not having a good viewership, which is not by a reputed publishing house, so we need to take all these things into consideration to determine that it is a predatory journal.
Okay, okay. One more, madam. Could you focus or could you light on that plagiarism that you talk about, that 10 to 40%, 40 to 60%, and more than 60%. As we know that right now there is a lot of research which is going in India. In a specific topic, there are a lot of things which are lot of papers are published. Uh, so there are that scientific technical language is repeated. So whether it is very difficult for any researcher, even though he has write in his own words, still the plagiarism is there. So how to tackle this one? Because that is
uh,
a big question right now in front of every researcher.
Yes. See, like I said, that when we started working, there was we wrote a review article on docetaxel, right? So docetaxel is a drug, and it's a drug which has been used from so many time. So what kind of information, first of all, it is very important for us to determine that what kind of information that we want to provide. This kind of a problem comes when I'm writing a review paper. When I'm writing a research paper, then there is no problem, because my result is going to be a different result. My approach is going to be a different approach. But in case of a review paper, we might have lot of similarities as far as the work is concerned. So it is very important, first of all, to determine that let me see from the literature, that what the literature sub says, what kind of, I always tell my student that please tell me that this work which you want to write as a review paper, is there a review paper on it, right? From the last 5 years, please check, is there a review paper on it? If there is a review paper on it, what do you think was missing into that review paper? Can we address that? Can we address that? Right. So when I am making sure that I am going to present something, which is missing into that paper. If supposingly, in 2023 only there is a review paper, in which everything has been written, and I was also thinking of writing on the same lines, then please, I should not go ahead with it,
Okay.
right? So very important to have a clarity in our mind, see the previous work, which has been published, and then try to see how novel, how interesting, how different we can be.
And whether there is a substantial contribution of that particular person should be there while writing review, especially.
What?
Whether that particular the person or the researcher who is writing a review article having his own substantial contribution in that particular field or that
Yeah,
topic.
yes, yes. And then see, many a times what happens is that when you start writing a paper, you find that you will have a very interesting way of presenting, whatever is there in 10 research papers. Okay, so you have now converted it into a form of a table, or you have picked up the relevant figures from them, and then you have presented, into a review article, so your chances of acceptance get higher.
Okay, okay. Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you. Thank you. And very on a last on a lighter note, whatever the PG students who are there, the whether that particular research work to be published in a part or as a whole as a quality paper, they have to publish in a very reputed
Uh,
journal.
For my M-Farm students, I prefer one complete article because the quantum of work is not, it doesn't warrant for at least two papers. Like for my PhD work, yes, because the quantum of work is so high that one paper is not going to accept all my results, right? So maybe then I go in for a formulation part, and then I a safety and the efficacy part. But for my postgraduate students, I go in for a single paper.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, madam, for your valuable insight. So herewith we are conclude with this particular question answer session. So right now, as madam has talked on this particular topic, that is writing for science, art and ethical consideration, a very appropriate and what we can say innovative title. I really surprised and also happy to see. And what the madam discuss a lot of things in her talk, starting from the research article and review article. uh, Madam has highlighted on the lacuna which is present while writing a review article, especially that the what is the work already done, that has to be precisely in a concise wording we have to present. Along with we have to find out the lacuna in the present research work, and that could lead to a very good review article in that sense. Along with there is how to letter to the editor. Then in detail, madam focus on that is the characteristics of manuscript, which includes generally from the title, then the abstract, introduction, methods, result, discussion, and references especially. So in that particular part, madam has uh, highlighted on which point has to be considered, that your originality of work and novelty is one of the important criteria while writing any research paper and doing the research. Then along with the title should be very precise and very meaningful. Then in her latter part of her presentation, she highlighted on how to select a journal, write a journal along with the rejection for that particular journal, then the level of significance, then the originality, then the quantum of research and all that, followed with how we should not publish in a predatory journals. Along with the plagiarism is one of the concept where we have to be utmost we have to take utmost care so that our research paper will not reject it ultimately, and ultimately we will not penalize, because the penalty is also discussed by the madam. And the data fabrication and falsification is also one of the important key point to be considered. And very lastly, authorship and conflict of interest. Madam has said about that the guide should be a corresponding author, and like that, who is originally work on that particular work should be a first author, along with the conflict of interest of that organization or funding agency, along with the certain intellectual property. So definitely, this particular lecture is a very good insight and resourceful for everyone. Thank you, madam, enlightening us. Now is a matter of appreciation. Kindly accept our certificate of appreciation for your wonderful talk. So,
Thank you so much.
certificate of appreciation, yes, madam. And thank you very much for giving your valuable time and sparing a lot of resourceful knowledge to one and all of this participant of this particular EFTP. So
Yeah,
here
thanks
we
for
come.
inviting me. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah, madam. And here's we conclude this particular session. So participant, we will join on 3 o'clock with next session. Thank you, madam. Thank you. Have a good day. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.